Hey, welcome in. This is Josh with 6 Up Tabletop. Happy to have you here doing another painting video for War of the Ring, and we'll be painting through the regular, elite, the leaders, Boromir and Aragorn's models for the Gondor faction. Yeah, super excited to have you along. Been doing a couple other, factions for this painting series. So we're moving on to Gondor, and we'll kind of be working in this traditional black and white scheme. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, jumping into kind of some of the prep work. You can see here, this is just a bowl and it has a little soap, a little bit of water. That's kind of where the models are added. I wash them, just rinse them a little bit, scrub them with my hands. You can use a toothbrush or something. And then, yeah, just rinse them in cold water. There's some comments in some other videos in this series that people had trouble with the paint sticking or some of the plastic melting or something. I'm not exactly sure, but it's just my prep. I use basically like an acrylic undercoating, and then I just do a zenithal highlight. Using Vallejo black, I just highlight the front of the shield, the back of the shield, and then any of the fabric on the model in black. Alright, moving on, hitting up with Vallejo, doing dark flesh. Not too much flesh here, so just make sure you squeeze it into the helmet and we'll be good from there. This is Scale Color Artist. This is Burnt Umber. I end up going with a lighter leather on the gloves, and that will precede this clip. But this is pretty much the brown that I'm using on the spear shaft and a couple other brown, I guess in a couple other cases across this various model range. So I do like that brown, as you can see here. Moving on to the leather, but just talking overall about this scheme, as I alluded to, the goal here is try to keep it simple, but I do really want to focus on the contrast of black and white. So I hope that shines through throughout the process. Using Exhaust Manifold by Vallejo Model Color. This is a really heavy pigmented metallic, and I think it's great. It's not too light. It's a little bit darker, so I kind of wanted to go for like that darker steel. And just to note that it does not work super well on a wet palette, so I have like a little metal tin that I just put a couple drops of the paint in. I mix it on there, and then I just apply directly to the model, and I usually don't add hardly any water to my brush. It's just a great metallic paint. It's just something to keep note of, especially if you're painting over multiple sessions. I do decide on the chainmail to go with like a coppery color, and so I wanted a little bit of contrast, not just black, white, and then the silver. So you could choose to just do it all silver if you wanted, but I use Balthasar Gold here just to add a little pop of kind of a different color, and I use it kind of across the scheme. So far so good. We're working through the metallics. Not too much more to do on the face here, but I do add this instant color, and it's basically just like a very, very thin wash, and just apply it to the face. Pretty much every video I use this light green gray. It's basically like an off-white, not as bright. And just take a really small brush, be very careful with that, and just do your best to trace basically all the white of the tree and the stars on their shield. So just take your time, and after a few minutes, there's our finished product. All right, so this is the elite and the leader compared next to each other. As you can see, they are basically identically the exact same sculpt, except the leader has the standard bearer, and the elite just has a spear. So I will be painting the elite using Blood Reaver flesh, and that's just gonna go all across the horse anywhere that there is flesh. And for the leader, I'm doing my white horse scheme for the leaders, just so pretty much any good faction, wherever there's a horse, you're able to tell that that's the leader. And so I'm just continue across the different factions. But you can go with any brown here, however you want. This was just a brown that I had a lot of, so I just was going to test it out to see how it looked. So I think it turned out fine. So you might need 2 coats of this, depends on how your undercoating came. This is the umber color that we used in the regular unit video, and so it's interesting because this model it's like almost like a medieval knight, how these Gondor knights are being represented, and I think that's pretty cool. But there's a lot of leather straps, part of the different harnesses and such. So just make sure you hit that all with that umber color. Similar as before, using this Vallejo metal color, the exhaust manifold, and apply that all over where there's armor. Now there's some instances in his armor where the harness and the armor kind of merge together, so just do your best and kind of create separations so that you can tell visually where one might begin and one ends. Do a little bit on the spear here, and then a little bit on the edge of the shield. That's where I'm just going to go black for the shield, and then the horse has a little bit of armor as well that you want to get. Using a black, there's a couple pieces of cloth here. Just do your best to make sure you can pick out exactly where it is, and that's just going to continue with the theme of black and white, and just paint the shield black. As we're going to come back to that later to make it pop in as we paint the tree. Jumping into Vallejo leather, just going to be handling his gloves, the saddle, the reins, and the stirrups. You could paint these gloves as metal gauntlets if you wanted, just to continue the metal theme, but it's kind of totally up to you. Just make sure that you cover any of the white areas and be careful and use a smaller brush around the horse's head to make sure that you don't get paint on the body of the horse. But I use a little Balthasar gold here. It's going to be any metallic. You can make it leather if you want it. I just wanted to add a little bit of a different color element in the armor. Alright, Cat-Chan Flesh. Bringing this brown out again. This is just another video where I'm using multiple different brown colors, but that's fine. I just want some variation, so just apply this all over the spear haft, and then it's kind of, we're in a good space for that brown. I would say with the light green gray, just use a small detailed brush, don't put too much pressure, and kind of just let the paint sit and stick to the raised edges. And as long as you do that, you can do 2 coats just to make it more opaque, but you should get kind of a nice looking shield. These are small gaming models, so there's no need to be perfect. So you can see here the elite and the leader, basically all these steps are the same. It's just the different color paint used for the horse flesh. So I'll continue with the final steps with painting the leader. Alright, Cat-Chan Flesh, similar. The shaft here compared to the spear shaft, still using Cat-Chan Flesh. As in the other models, we'll be using Vallejo black on the flag, and then using the light green gray with a small brush to do some careful detailing on the insignia on the front and back of the flag, and that will finish it up for the elite and the leaders for Gondor. jumping into Boromir. So I used black gray from Vallejo to do his cloak. So just take your time. You can use a larger brush for this. But it is interesting. Boromir, I actually got sent 2 Boromirs in my version of the game. Not sent, but there's 2 Boromirs in my copy of the game, so I actually had to email the company to get a Legolas, because there wasn't a Legolas, but it literally took them a couple days, and they sent it over, so no problem. I just wanted to make sure I had my full fellowship. It is interesting. This model compared to how I would perceive him in the movies. He has like a kite shield here, and compared to like his round hunting shield, it would have been cool to see him with a horn as opposed to a sword, but perhaps it's a little bit easier to sculpt in the soft plastic, the sword in his left hand. But yeah, we just do brown leather from Vallejo. He has his gloves, but I paint a little bit up onto the sleeve that's modeled there. I just kind of want to represent like leather greaves that he might use for hunting. So kind of just paint them where they might not exactly be. This is Night Lord's blue. I mix it with a little black. The basing is going to be dark blue, so I don't want anything that's specifically dark blue, as it might not look as good if there's just like a ton of blue on the model and the base. So I dark it down as much as possible. Try to go for something like a really dark Prussian blue. Iconic to me is the red undergarment, like the sleeves that Boromir had worn. I just remember that from watching the movies. So I go with this red ochre color. You could pretty much go with any red here, but I think it really visually, people who have watched the Lord of the Rings movies, I think it visually ties to the character of Boromir, so that's why I wanted to go with that. Continuing with the dark flesh that we used basically for every other model in this video, just apply that to the face. Back at it again with the black Vallejo, apply that to the shield, and we'll do just a little bit of a freehand on the shield in the end. Using instant color, human flesh is just that quick flesh wash. Apply that over the face, it just adds some nice depth. So I use Catachan flesh and I mix it with a little bit of black to have the hair. And I keep the same paint, and I use the same paint for Aragorn when I paint him. And I just wanted to kind of tie them in with their same hair color, but as they both, their lineage both takes them back through the ancestry of Gondor. So I wanted to go with the slightly brighter silver, like metallic. So I just apply that to the sword, and then a little bit around the edge of the shield. And this is just in contrast of like the darker metallics used for the other models in the Gondor faction. I just wanted to pop out a little bit as it is a hero model. And boom, there we go. A little freehand, not my best work. Kind of looks like fireworks, but that's all good. Just try your best to make a tree if you want to do this. And I add the extra stars. And this kind of ties them in to the rest of the Gondor soldiers. Moving on to Aragorn. Now, this is an interesting model. I definitely could see where they're coming from in terms of this pose, and it kind of reminds me of the pose of the cover art of Return of the King. But I would not say this is my favorite model, but either way, this is what we got, so let's paint it up. I go with the same dark blue color that I use for Boromir. So it's the Night Lords mixed in with a little bit of black. Now the cloak, I'm going to build the cloak up in a couple phases. You could go with a different color if you want. I do a little light green gray, and I mix that with Fenrisian gray, which is more like a gray blue. So I mix those two together to have like a mid-tone gray, and then I'll slowly mix another thin coat and add more Fenrisian, so it adds a little bit more blue and a little bit more blue, and I end up doing, I want to say like 3 or 4 coats just on the more raised areas. And as you'll see here shortly, the end result here, you can see in the raised areas is a little bit of blue. And I think it looks good, and it'll look even better once we apply our oil wash. Okay, using the same leather here, I opt instead of metal that these are going to be leather braces, arm braces, and so I just apply that where his gloves would be, and also a little bit on the boots as well. This leather is doing a lot of work across this project, and I'm always happy to use it. As in with Boromir, using a lighter silver, and I'm just going to apply this anywhere where I deem they'll be metallic. So he's got a little chainmail, and so I do silver for that. With the blade on the sword, it has some chest armor, and as well as some leg armor as well that I do in the silver. As you can see, the Strider artwork from the game, that's kind of what I'm going with here. So I do use this metallic bronze. I apply that a little bit on his sword, and then also his helmet kind of replicates the art. So this is the model to me that represents kind of the Strider aspect of Aragorn. And so I just wanted to point that out and why I'm giving him that bronze helmet. Using the same brown, though if I'm watching this back, I think this feels like it has a little bit more black, but I tried to take it from the same area just to tie his hair in to the same hair as Boromir. Okay. Using the same approach, the dark flesh, the flesh wash, cover that in other models painted in this video. Just to make sure you get full coverage here, and that's pretty much my only notes for that as we are closing out painting Aragorn. Like I said, he would not be my favorite model, but I do think that the little blue in the cloak will tie in nicely to the dark blue in the base. So now that we painted all the acrylic paints, it's time to move on to the oil wash process using burnt umber, ivory black, Winsor Newton from their artist line. Just mix that with a little bit of mineral spirits and just apply with a brush all over the model. Let it rest 3 or 4 hours. It could be 2 hours, just depends on the heat and humidity where you're at. And then I'll come back with a makeup sponge and just remove the oil from the top of the surfaces and just let the oil rest in the recesses of the model. Okay, I would just also recommend before you put the final paint on the base, take that sponge or a new sponge and just try to wipe as much oil as you can off the base. And then the final color I used on the bases and the rims is Cantor Blue, and I apply that across all the models. But I only do that after letting the model rest another couple hours after I've wiped the oil off. And as I scroll through the final outros of the completed army, It did take me a little bit of time to get this done. There's definitely a lot of particular work in painting the shields and just taking my time to be careful and not making any mistakes. But yeah, overall quite happy with how Gondor turned out. I'm looking forward to getting to Rohan and the other factions of Middle Earth. Can't believe I'm a couple videos down, a couple more to go. Got a couple more images and videos to scroll through. I hope you got something out of this. Appreciate it if you stuck along. I still got some historical videos that I want to get to, so I appreciate everyone's patience as I try to finish this series. Thank you for watching, and it's Josh with Six Up Tabletop. We'll see you in the next version of painting War of the Ring, Epic Battles in the Land of Middle Earth. Take care.